Want to welcome, we're good and hot tonight. We want to welcome you back for Bible study, and just a quick rundown. We do have 3 classes on Sunday nights. The Don Riddle class will be in here, and Jacob Mayfield class will be in the fellowship hall, and the Coy Siddell class will be in the parlor. So there's a breakdown of your teachers, and they'll all do a wonderful job. Good to see all you here tonight. We have just a few announcements we want to go over. Brother Don, the Lord's Supper is going to dismiss them during the first song. For those of y'all who weren't here this morning, the Lord's Supper communion has been left prepared in the parlor. You'll need to dismiss yourself during the first song, and you'll be served for that, okay? First song, let them go during the first song. I was told, so all right, we do as we're told. Sunday, this is a announcement that's really kind of hot off the press, but the elders have decided that next Sunday, the full offering, will be given for disaster relief from the storms. So be thinking about that, being mindful and purposeful in our giving. As we always are, but for this specific need, as all the funds will be going towards the disaster relief in our offering next Sunday. Next Sunday as well, we're going to be, Rebecca is going to be setting up for pictures. So friends, families, it's already out there. Actually, if you want to go ahead and take some selfies or whatever, help yourself. It's there for our enjoyment and encouragement. So looking forward to next Sunday and all the families that may be here for Easter. Brother Shiree, he's a Baptist, but he's been moved out of the emergency room into a room. And so we're glad for that. He will be probably in the hospital for a few days undergoing some tests. And so be prayerful for the Shiree family. As already mentioned, Brother Don will have our couple of songs. Brother Frankie will have our prayer before we're dismissed to class. Thank you for being here. Welcome.
As Michael said, that those that did not have the opportunity to partake of the Lord's Supper, during the singing of this song, if you'll go to the parlor, you'll be waited upon. Each day I'll do a golden deed by helping those who are in need. My life on earth is but a span, and so I'll do the best I can. Life's evening sun is sinking low. A few more days, and I must go to meet the deeds that I have done, where there will be no setting sun. To be a child of God each day, my light must shine along the way. Praise while ages roll, and strive to help some troubled soul. Life's evening sun is sinking low. A few more days, and I must go to meet the deeds that I have done, where there will be no setting sun. I'll help someone in time of need and journey on with rapid speed. I'll help the sick, the poor and weak, and words of kindness is to them speed. Life's evening sun is sinking low. A few more days, and I must go to meet the deeds that I have done, where there will be no setting sun. Shall be standing for this song, next song, that will be dismissed after our prayer to our classes. Here we are but straying pilgrims here, our path is often dim, but to cheer us on our journey still, we sing this wayside hymn. Yonder over the rolling river, where shining mansions rise, soon will be our home forever, and the smile of the blessed giver gladdens all our longing eyes. Here our feet are often weary on the hills that throng our way. Here the tempest darkly gathers, but our hearts within us say, yonder over the rolling river, where the shining mansions rise, soon will be our home forever, and the smile of the blessed giver gladdens all our longing eyes. Here our souls are often fearful of the pilgrim's lurking foe, but the Lord is our defender, and he tells us we may know. Yonder over the rolling river, where the shining mansions rise, soon will be our home forever, and the smile of the blessed giver gladdens all our longing eyes.
Would you bow with me? Our Heavenly Father, we thank you for this day. Father, thank you for the blessings that you've given us, and thank you for giving us the opportunity and the ability to come here this evening and to continue to delve into your word. We ask that as we dismiss our classes that you would guide the instructors, help them to teach the word truly and with a delivery that we can take it back and we can use it in our lives. Father, be with those that have been affected by these storms that have come through, and help us as we look for ways that we can help them. Help us to be mindful of their needs, and help us to show them your love and show them what we can do to help just get them back on their feet and help them to in any way that we can. Above all, we ask that you be with each and every one of us. We ask that you guide our hearts, guide our minds, and always we ask that you forgive us wherever we fail you. These things in Christ's name. Amen.
That's what you hear in the morning when you wake up in Australia. I'll tell you all about that in a second. Doesn't sound the same, does it? have to be. Well, I was waiting until everybody kind of got settled down. I'll start talking, Chris. Not everybody's got in here yet. For the next 3 weeks, we're going to be looking at Islam. I am not an expert in Islam, but I'm going to recommend some sources to you. I found this is very, very, very helpful. Seeking Allah, Finding Jesus. That shows you what some of these guys struggle with. They'll show you their lifestyle they brought up, how they were taught from kids to know what the Quran says, to memorize, some of them to memorize it fully, and also how to argue against Christianity. This is, you can't hear me? Oh, sorry. All right. Good. Seeking Allah, Finding Jesus. Highly recommend it. Costs you about $20. No, I bought that in Australia. So that costs $14, $15. His follow-up book on that, No God But One, is really good too in helping understand how they look at the scriptures and how he uses it to tell the Muslims about God. I don't know where I got this one because I always put in when I buy them and what it costs me, but this is a resource for the study of Islam. I also found to be a very good source. Very readable, not at all hard to follow, but well worth the time. And this one Betty and I got over at Harding late last year. Islam in Christ's Eyes, written by a former Muslim. This one has the order of the Quran. It's not written in chronological order, but this one tells you what the order is. And he tells you how to talk to Muslims. That's a very good one. Islam in Christ's Eyes, you can get it at Harding. It costs you $20. I thought long and hard about how to start this class. So let me start by just asking this question. Do you believe that God can work with you? Yes. Do you believe that God can work with you and through you? That's probably one of the first things we've got to ask ourselves. Do I believe God can work with me? Teaching, talking to someone else, talking to our neighbors, helping to share Christ. Do we believe that God will help us do that? That's got to be first and foremost in our lives. If we don't believe that, we're not going to do it. But if we believe and we're still not knowing how to do all this, that's fine. I am not giving you a step-by-step instruction on how to talk to people. I'm giving you information that you can, so y'all can strike up conversations. Because there's no telling when you talk to someone who is a Muslim, are they Sunni? Are they Shia? Are they Ahmadi? Are they Wahhabi? Are they ISIS? Who are they? And they're all different. The same way if you're talking to a Hindu or if you're talking to a Buddhist. There's different sects. And so there's no way for me to say, here is a point-by-point outline of how you talk with someone. This is for us to understand something about their background, something about them, and how to engage in conversations with them to help them come to Jesus. This journey right here, Nabil Quresh, took him 8 years. 8 years. His friend David Wood worked with him for 8 years before he would finally sit down and say, what I'm reading about Jesus is true. And he'll tell you his struggle when he finally sits down and says, I believe Jesus rather than the Quran. And that's over about here in the book. That's what shows you his struggle. It may take time. It may take more than 8 years. We're talking about souls, so how long does it take? How long was God patient with you? And be patient with people. Islam has about 1.9 billion adherents. Those all the way from, like you said, the Taliban, the ISIS, the Wahhabis, down to the ones we talked with in Guyana, which are just average Joe Muslim people. That's where I got this. This is the Quran in 2 volumes. If you have someone that's a Muslim, ask them for a copy. They give these away. She said, "Would you want one?" I said, "Sure." She brought me this copy. It's an older version. I will say, when you get a copy, they do not accept anything as authoritative except what's written in Arabic. This has the Arabic and English. I don't know if that makes it more powerful or not. That I don't understand. But they're fairly thick volumes. We're going to read several of these passages out of here, especially when it comes to dealing with Jesus. There are about 4 million, I found out, Muslims in the United States, but they're growing at the rate of about 30,000 a year. One website said they will soon be the second largest religious group in the United States. So we will have our work cut out for us. Now, I don't know how they got that. I'm just repeating what I found. Their founder is Muhammad. He was born about 570 A.D. His dad died before he was born. His mother died at 6. He was raised by an uncle. He was raised by the most powerful tribe in Arabia. They controlled the spice trade routes through there. He learned his religious ideas from caravans that passed through. I'll show you a picture in a little bit. You can get a kind of a visual idea of where he lived and where he worked. But they're going up down the western side of Arabia with the caravan routes going north up into to the Middle East, into Rome, and spread out from there. A Christian slave of some sort apparently taught him about Christianity. This is what's recorded in several sources. Plus, there was a very broad Jewish influence in the area at the time. In Mecca, there was a large congregation of Jews. So he learned from the Jews. He learned from the traders. He learned from this slave of his who was a Christian. He was a man of high moral principles in an area that had no principles almost. And when I say that, we'll look at that in a second. You'll see why I say, no moral principles in the area. He began praying toward Jerusalem as the Jews did. That's the influence from the Jews when they prayed toward Jerusalem. But when they rejected his teaching, he said, okay, I'm done with you. I'm going to pray toward the Kaaba in Mecca. His first revelation came about in 610 A.D. That's about, 1,600 years ago. He had been having visions and hearing voices. And he sought answers, so he went to a cave on a mountainside and meditated. Gabriel appeared to him and instructed him to recite in the name of your Lord. He had to recite because he was illiterate. He could not read, he could not write. He never did read or write as far as I could find out. His new teachings of just one God drew a lot of opposition from his tribe because they controlled the caravan routes, and those caravan routes were protected by their gods. And so you say, no, our gods are wrong and there's only one God? What's going to happen to our trade? And so he got in hot water real quick. And so there's tumultuous times until about 630 when Mecca was captured and the Kaaba is made the seat of worship for Islam. He died on June 8th, not 98. Anyway, June 8th, 1632. I wanted to put a picture up here of Muhammad. There are pictures. They are mainly done by the Muslims in Asia. But the Muslims in the Middle East, it's forbidden. And so, not to be gracious toward them, I was going to say, I didn't put a picture up there. I wanted to, so we kind of get an idea. Because I had never even seen a picture until I got to looking for one. But in most places, they are forbidden. As I said, Arabia, when he was there, is morally corrupt. And as you read through there, you'll see exactly why real quick. They were polytheistic, many gods. There were 360 gods in the Kaaba at one time. 360, and it's not very big. Women had no status. They were inherited by the son. The father's wives were inherited by the son when he died, except for his mom. Women did not have the same privileges as given to a good camel. And that's a quote. And I sat there and when I wrote that, I thought, how can anybody treat somebody that you're not even worth a good camel? A lot of this, as I go through this and telling y'all, is above my understanding. But that's what they believed at that time. Female babies were worthless. And often buried alive because they were tribal. And they were persistent in revenge. Put a capital P on persistent. You go against somebody, the tribe came after you. They needed boys to grow up to be fighters, to fight or have revenge in their tribal areas. So girls were useless, so they needed boys. They were loyal to the family, though. The Kaaba is a stone temple said to have been built by Abraham and Ishmael. At that time, when Muhammad conquered Mecca, they had 360 different idols in it. It is said Abraham wanted a special place for people to find peace and focus completely on worshiping Allah, so Allah said, build a Kaaba. You can't see it on that map very well. But Abraham got nowhere near Mecca that I can figure out. He came from the Euphrates River area down through Canaan, down to Egypt, and back to the Promised Land again. Never did he go about 700 miles south of there. We're at 750 miles from Jerusalem to Mecca. That's a long walk through a desert. Of course, there's a trade route through there, but still a long walk. The Jews had no homeland at this time because the temple had been razed. Rome is gone. Its power and influence is diminished and gone. So there's basically a vacuum in the whole area through there as far as anybody who's powerful. The Jews were not united in marriage and religion and culture and in trade. Who controls the diamond trade today? The company? Anybody know? Murfreesboro. I don't think so. Because they give theirs away. De Beers doesn't give theirs away. De Beers is the one who controls the diamond trade. A lot of the people who deal in diamonds in Europe are Jewish. You know how they do business? With a handshake only. There are no lawyers. There's no contracts. There's no anything like that. I'm going to pay you $100 million for that. Done. With a handshake. It goes all the way back to this time. They were envied because they were for their wealth. Because they were traders, even back then. And Christianity was developing into what we know as the Roman Catholic Church today. A bit of terminology. Islam just means submission. That's all it means. A Muslim is just one who submits. That's it. Allah is just Arabic for God. And I looked that up in unbiased dictionary to find out that's true. It goes all the way back to the Jewish part of God being called El Shaddai or El whatever, El Roy. So it's just Arabic for God. Now I put the last one up here, shirk, because this is one of the big. This is, if there's a snag in any talk with a Muslim, this is it. To put anybody on level with God is the worst sin you can ever commit. You're guaranteed to burn in hell for eternity if you put anybody on a level with God. If you assent to that there's somebody else who's on a level with God, if you teach somebody there's somebody else on a level with God, that's called the shirk. That means you're toast. No ifs, ands, buts, words, or nors. There is no greater sin. None. So when we say Jesus is God, they can't say that. When we go back and say, well, I want to tell you Jesus is God, to them you're saying, I want you to burn in hell. So you've got to come over, you can't start there. You've got to work through some things. Because if we say what the Bible tells us about Jesus, they cannot accept that. They've been taught from a baby. We'll find out the first thing they hear, the very first thing they hear is there's no God but Allah, and Muhammad is his messenger. The last thing they hear before they die is there's no God but Allah, and Muhammad is his prophet. I said messenger, his prophet. That is what the parents make sure their kids know, who Allah is. So it's not, this is someone who's submissive to God, and I would applaud them for being submissive to God. The holy places. Mecca is the site of the Grand Mosque. It's the destination for the Hajj, and it's the most holy place in Islam. You and I cannot go. Right now, the Hajj is on. This is Ramadan, and the season when people go to Mecca. There are millions, there are probably about 2 million people there now. If you and I go there and they find out that we're not Muslim, we will be removed. From what I found out is that they don't come out and throw you in jail and drag you through the desert or anything like that, but they take you out. If you're working over there for a company, the company comes get you and takes care of getting you out of the country because you're done. You're deported. We cannot, even today, anytime after today, you can't go to Mecca. We're not allowed because it's the most holy place in Islam. Second most holy place is Medina, where he's buried. And the third is the Dome of the Rock. This is Muhammad's burial tomb. Very ornate. From the inside. You don't see the outside. There's too much to try to get it all in. But this is the inside of his tomb. There's a casket where he's buried in Medina. This is the Dome of the Rock. And the dome is covered with gold. Pure gold. It's a hexagonal structure built there on the spot where Abraham was supposed to God told Abraham to go and sacrifice his son, and God intervened. It's also the place where David built a temple. And it's the place where it is said that Muhammad came there and met Moses, Samuel and Elijah, and some other prophets, and he led them in prayer, then ascended into heaven. Gabriel took him into heaven, showed him heaven, showed him hell, and introduced him to God. And then he came back. That place will never not be disputed. Ever. Because the Jewish temple was built there, the Muslim temple was built there, and it's never going to get resolved in my eyes. On the picture on the left, you can see Mecca is down in the lower bottom half of the screen. It's about 750 miles up to Jerusalem from there. That's the route going up to the edge of the Red Sea where the trade routes ran. And that's where money was being made. That's where he began his ministry. This is the Kaaba. It's just a small stone temple. Now, right now you can't see it because it's covered in black, covered in black cloth. It's covered in black cloth 364 days of the year. And the other day they get everybody out. Nobody can be there. And they change out the covering once a year. This is not a small place. It is 1.63 million square feet. The mosque and the Kaaba. That's the Kaaba there. The mosque is built around it. And the whole area is 1.63 million square feet. That is enough for 815 2,000 square foot houses. Or if you want in acres, that's almost 37.5 acres of property. It will hold 500,000 worshipers at once. There's probably about that many there right now. And it's not the biggest one. The biggest one is 3.8 million square feet. I think it holds 800,000 worshipers. And I didn't even find out where it's from. I just thought, that's a big place. We're talking about holy places. This is the Grand Mosque. Now, legend has it. Oh, yeah, it's just a cube. In the wall of the cube is a black stone. Black stone's got a silver band wrapped around it, and it's inserted in the wall. And the most holy thing you can do is go and touch it and kiss it. You can see from that picture there, that's going to be a hard task to do. You want to circle the Kaaba 7 times. The guys around the Kaaba, that's a short walk. The guys on the outside, that's a long walk. It is said that the stone that one, I may have it up here. Let me go. Yeah, it has a black stone built into it. Yeah, the stone was legendary. It was a legend to be originally white, but it turned black because of sins of people touching it. You know, that's actually kind of plausible, is it could turn black. Not necessarily from sin, but just turn black. If you go to a cave, the stalactites and stalagmites, they won't let you touch them because it kills them if you do, from the oil on your skin. So it could have been white. I don't know where it was or not. I've heard that it is a black meteorite. Don't know. Legend has it the stone was given to Adam and Eve. So show them where to build a temple on earth. Legend has it that it was given to Adam on his expulsion from the garden to forgive his sins. That's the first time I found that legend. But that is a legend. Either way, it wound up in the Kaaba. And this is the most holy place on earth to a Muslim. As I said, this is the time of the Hajj, the annual pilgrimage to Mecca. Here again is another picture. You can see them, they're all in concentric circles praying toward the Kaaba. It's required of all Muslims to go at least once in their lifetime. I read an article this week that's getting more and more difficult for the average Muslim to do, simply because of the cost. They have built a hotel there that houses 60,000 guests. It has 5 towers, 4 helipads, and the top 5 stories are all King Saud's family's domain. Nobody goes on the top 5 stories. And that's the small one planned. The bigger one planned in the same spot. If I can find my notes now. Oh, the bigger one planned will hold 100,000 people in rooms, 26 luxury hotels, 500 restaurants, and a 6-story prayer hall. The interesting point is they're building this all on historic sites in Mecca. If it was related to Muhammad, it's being raised, and these things are being built on it because the Wahhabis say that you can't have a sacred site like that. It takes away from the glory to God, so let's raise it, and we'll build a hotel on it. It may be where the average Muslim cannot afford to go. You're required to go unless you're sick or you help somebody else go. But one of the also requirements is you have to be able to afford it. And it may not be affordable for Joe Average here in the not too distant future. One person in 1,000 can go. That means there's about 4,000 in the United States that can go this year, and that's all. I don't know how they do that. They check passports, they count them up, and they cut it off, I guess. But this is a requirement if you're a Muslim. This is the Quran. I've already broken a law by sticking a page in it. This is their holy book. It's the absolute Word of God with no mistakes. That's a quote. What's wrong with that quote? A little louder, please.
It's not true.
Yeah. What's the first question you need to ask?
Who wrote it?
Well, you know, who wrote it? It's true. They're going to say God wrote it. But okay, that's a good question. But the question I would ask is, it's the absolute Word of God with no mistakes. Explain to me how that's true. You don't have to say no. Just say, hey, explain. That to me is foreign. Explain to me how that's true. Put the onus on them to defend their own faith rather than attacking our faith. Because they'll do the same thing to you. Which is not necessarily bad. It says it's eternal, it pre-existed in heaven. Why is that true? Why do you believe that? It has never been changed. Is that true? Vast majority of them do not know that that is not true. Nabil, when he's going through that, he was taught that all his life. So he and David Wood were talking back and forth, and they're saying, it's never been changed. He said, well, show me why that's true. Go get the evidence, and we'll get together, and we'll talk about what you find, and I'll get together, and we'll talk about what I find about the Bible. He dug into their traditions. He found out it's not true. I'll expound on that just a little bit. They say it's God's final revelation, and nobody but Muhammad, nobody else anywhere else has this. It came over a period of 23 years. And again, it was not written down any time during that time. Muhammad couldn't write it down. His companions did not write it down. It was compiled by Abu Bakr, or Baker. I don't know how to pronounce his name, sorry. They were trying to figure, when Muhammad died, they started writing everything down because they said, we need to know what he said. So there got to be several Qurans. Abu Bakr said, maybe he was commissioned, or I forgot now. I read it's in the book. If you get the book, you'll read it. You'll find out. It said he pulled all the versions together that he could, burned everything that didn't agree with what he thought was right. And the Quran is never been changed. It is recorded in Islamic literature, what I just said. It's not that I pulled off the top of my head. Now this is, when you read it, it's not in chronological order. You have to get a Muslim to help you figure out what the order is. It is ranged from the longest chapter to the shortest, except for the first one. The first one's really short. Let me read you the first one. It's well worth hearing. This one is a study Quran because it's got all kinds of notes in it. And I have to find out where it begins because there's a whole bunch of introduction. Surah 2. Surah 2. Come on. Surah 1. It's only 5 verses long. In the name of God, most gracious, most merciful. Praise be to God, the cherisher and sustainer of worlds. Most gracious, most merciful. Master of the day of judgment. Thee do we worship, in thine aid we seek. Show us the straight way, the way of those on whom you have bestowed thy grace, those whose portion is not wrath, and who go not astray. That's the first chapter. That is said every day in prayer. You have to repeat that in prayer every time you pray, plus something else from here. But that's repeated 5 times a day per person. They believe in the Old Testament and the New Testament. Don't let them say they don't. They do. As long as it's not corrupted, which is what they say. The Jews corrupted the Old Testament. The Christians corrupted the New Testament. And what's wrong with that statement? It's easy to say something. You say that they corrupted the Old Testament. Can you show me where they did that and how they did that? You say the Christians corrupted the New Testament. Can you show me where and how they did that? We're talking here about conversations with people. And getting to trust one another so that you can sit there and bounce things off one another. Let me tell you all this from the start. When you talk with a Muslim, very likely, Nabil Qureshi will say, expect emotion. Let me illustrate that. Y'all remember when the Syrian war broke out and Syrians flocked out of Syria by the thousands. They went into Central Europe, went into Greece, went into the Mediterranean nations. The church Sunset Church of Christ has a school over there in Greece. So they brought a Muslim scholar, who's a Christian, out of Egypt to teach the Muslims that were coming out of Syria. Well, they got into a place, I don't know how big it was, but they had a place, and he was teaching, and all of a sudden, room just erupted. I mean, they were yelling and hollering, and emotions are flying which way, and the guy sitting there thought, we're going to die. Yep, we're going to die. Two people calmed the whole situation down. Wasn't the speaker, wasn't the guys there watching. There's an older gentleman there. He got up and said, I've read the entire Quran. What he has been saying is true. And Muslims teach respect for your elders. So if your elders are speaking, you listen to what they've got to say, whether you agree with it or not. You listen. I know a woman then stood up. She said, I have memorized the Quran. What he is saying is true. Now, I don't know what the passage was, but after that it calmed down and they went on with their class, went on with the lesson. So when you talk to somebody and it gets emotional, they're not yelling at you. That's the way they can be. That's the way they have seen it in their culture. I'm not thrilled about that, but I'm learning. I'm kind of, hopefully one of these days, if I have the opportunity to teach a Muslim again. When you go down to Guyana, when we went down there, we didn't have any of these problems at all. They were very gracious and cordial to us. We hadn't any problems like that. But it can be here. Make them prove what they say. Now, if you go to somebody's house and they ask you, have you ever seen the Quran? Never. After you look at it, sit over here and lay your phone on top of it. Don't do that. Don't put it on the floor. Doesn't belong there. They don't write in their Qurans. They don't highlight. They don't underline. Nothing. They don't even put their name in the front. So if they lose it, they lose it. So someone gets there, and you look at it and say, okay, hand it back to them. Or if they say you can take it home, say thank you. Lay it beside you, but do not lay it on the floor. Don't pick up your phone, set your phone on top of it. That is disrespectful to them. And you try not to be disrespectful to people. I got two more and we're going to quit. When you read the Quran, you're going to see the term Isa. Isa is Jesus. That's just Jesus in Arabic. The people of the book are us and Jews. The people of the book are spoken out. You're supposed to listen to them. The Quran says listen to the people of the book. You remember that. Jinn, we call them genies, are lower than angels. Or demons or ghouls. They can be good or bad. They can exist in human or animal form. They believe in jinn strongly. So much so that if they have a feeling that something is wrong and they're traveling down the road, they will stop, turn around, and go back where they came from, or go a totally different route because they believe a jinn's up there waiting for them. These are the sanitized versions of jinn that I found. Believe me, these are sanitized versions. Y'all go look them up. They're a lot more graphic. The one on the left is kind of like our genie. He's blue, big, but I wouldn't want to meet him in an alley. The one on the right is what they say jinn do. They grab kids and take them off. And they believe that. So if someone says, I had a dream last night, and they go out and explain their dream, don't say, no, that's just, no. They believe in those. All right, we're going to quit right there. We got about 2 or 3 more weeks. Last week, we will look at a plan to talk to your to your Muslim friends that are around you, or at work, or wherever. Thank y'all for being here.